asleep amidst the trees. Bats all a swaying in the breeze. But one soul lies anxious, wide awake, fearing all manner of ghouls, hags and wraiths. For your dolly Polly sleep has flown, don't dare let her tremble alone. For the witcher, heartless cold, paid in coin of gold. He comes, he'll go, leave naught behind but heartache and woe. Deep, deep woe. It's all silent for the night. Cows turned in as daylight dies. But when soul lies anxious, wide awake, fearing all manner of ghouls, hags and wraiths. My dear dolly Polly, shut your eyes, lie still, lie silent, utter no cries. As the witcher, brave and bold, paid in coin of gold, he'll chop and slice you, cut and dice you, eat you up whole. Eat you whole.
One of my favorite songs of all time. I know I say that every week. It's becoming a tradition at this point. I am going to turn it down though, just because it can get a little loud. There we go. But hello everyone. There we go. Welcome to Talk Gaming, episode 24. We're rocking out. We are going to talk about a lot of stuff. The reason I was playing that song, if you can tell me what that latter song was, I will be impressed. And if you follow me on Twitter, you should know instantly, and so you can throw it in the chat. But I have been working on a big project, and that's why there haven't been any videos out this week. Well, I mean, there was one on Monday, early Monday, on what Ubisoft needs to do to make the Assassin's Creed succeed. And so I've been working. I've not been slacking. Don't worry. I'm not blowing off the channel. I have been working. And the thing I've been working on is actually a direct follow-up to some comments I got on this video, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Ultimate Critique, which actually did pretty well. We're at 34,000 right now. This ratio is crazy. 1,500 likes to 63 dislikes, and most of those dislikes are because I suck at combat, and I purposely chose clips where the combat looked stiff and bad to demonstrate my point. But overall, it was really, really good. And right here, Charles Lee, please review the expansions. So I said, okay. And multiple comments all throughout this entire video echoed that very point, asking me to do just that. And so I've been working on Hearts of Stone. That's actually what all of these papers are. These are excerpts from the Witcher 3 wiki, character analyses, quest analyses, also looking at the written journal entries that you can normally get in the menu, but it's easier when they're typed out. Looking at each of the quests and all of the characters' walkthroughs, different options and how they work out. Going through it all, gone through it multiple times, and this is going to be much more of an analysis. I don't think it's going to be as much of a critique, because it's still in many ways the same game. It's just an expansion to that game. It doesn't add any real gameplay elements that weren't there before, so there's no point in really going over everything again. I mean, if I just say, yeah, I feel like the controls are a little clunky and blah, 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 then what's the point in having the video? So the goal is to go through the narrative from start to finish, basically walking through the entire DLC expansion. And I bit off a little more than I can chew, I think. I thought that it was going to be maybe like a half-hour video. Turns out it's probably going to be like an hour and a half long. So I'm sorry, but that's what it's going to be. It's funny how the main game can last like 40, 50 hours for a full playthrough. That critique video was an hour and a half, or an hour and 20 minutes. And then I'm doing an analysis on the 10-hour expansion, and that's going to be about an hour and a half as well. So I don't know what to do. I think I just get in the groove and I start making stuff, and that's what happens. That's what happens. But hello, everyone. I'm glad that we got so many people coming out. Hello, Daniel, Max Prod. What's up? Leo Longevity. I'd like to see you here. Deathstroke, Jordan, Howler's Moon, Lekek, 1995. We got some cool people. Geralt is also here in the chat, which is always wonderful to have to have him bless us with his presence. But we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. Now, last week's episode, we went through and kind of talked about E3 in general, and that analyzed kind of my predictions. That was a much more disjointed podcast, and it was much longer because we did like a personality test at the end. It was much more fun and just free-willed, and some people loved it and some people hated it. And so we're going to try to do the best of both worlds here. We're going to save a lot of the more interaction type stuff for later on. So if you have questions as we go through these topics, I will be watching the chat, obviously. So if I see an interesting comment, I'll call it out and we can talk about that. But for the most part, I'm going to try to keep it a little more structured so I'm not bouncing all over the place, as I have a tendency to do. But going back to the Hearts of Stone analysis, my guess is that it will be ready. I mean, I'm almost done. I am almost done. I probably have, like I did the voiceover and all of the dialogue on my end is recorded. I just now have to go through my like 20 hours of footage and put, I've done it for most of the video. I think there's about 20 minutes left where I have to put clips to the audio, and it's weirdly time consuming. I did the math and I'm averaging, like, it takes about 15 minutes to do that for 2 minutes of the video, usually a little more than that. It's just time consuming. So hopefully I can finish that after this is done recording and get that rendering. It'll go out early to the patrons on Patreon. You guys will get early access to it, and then it will be available to everybody probably tomorrow at some point, which would be awesome. So that's where we're at. That's why there haven't been a lot of videos this week. But I'm really enjoying it. It's creatively challenging, and that's something I was missing out. When you're just doing these bland 5-10 minute news report type things where you're just telling people or reading off an article, basically, is what your function devolves into. It's boring for everybody involved. And I don't want to become a channel that puts out 5 to 7 minute long videos every day, and each of them you can tell just by watching it, this guy has run out of ideas. I don't want that to be the thing. I want it I put out a video and people are astonished that it's this good, that's what I want to do. And that's what we're going to try to do. Deathstroke 5700 asks, in that video is a large portion dedicated to Gunter Odim. Yes, actually. I actually have in my wonderful handy dandy packet a full character analysis, some of it straight from the wiki, other stuff I wrote up on Gunter Odim. I mean, it's tough because he's not directly correlated to like Polish literature in the form that he takes on in the game, so it's not a strict like this is who he is. It's more something that in the world of The Witcher he exists as this sort of evil incarnate force, though he does have restrictions. Like for instance, if you go through Hearts of Stone but you haven't completed the main quest, if you side with Gunter, he can actually, as a reward, tell you how to get the best ending with Ciri. He walks you through each of the elements, but he can't tell you exactly where she is. Now, that makes sense from a gameplay perspective because it could totally negate the entire main quest, but at the same time, it also is explained in the narrative as, you know, Ciri goes between dimensions. She's basically above my pay grade. So he's limited to the world of, you know, The Witcher, but he's a cool dude. He's a cool dude, especially because he doesn't look like your typical bad guy. He's just straightforward and does his own thing. But it's really interesting. Like, for instance, he said when you ask for his real name, because it's clearly not Gunter Odim, even though that each of those initials comes out to God, he says that he can't tell you his real name because he says, quote, all who have learned my true name are now either dead or have met an even worse fate, end quote. That's a little eerie. So he's a very powerful dude, and we'll talk about him a fair bit in that video towards the end. The main first 3/4 of the video is dedicated to going through the narrative, and then at the end I try to tie it all together and explain my thoughts on the characters. And so hopefully I can at least provide something interesting. If I can get people to at least get one thing from the video or learn something new, then it's cool. Then I'm happy. But yeah, spoilers. Yeah, no, it's pretty clear once you meet him. This guy is not normal. This is not your walk of the mill character, but he's wonderful. He's a wonderful character and very well written, and I enjoy it, especially because they don't try to make him evil. They try to make him more complicated and convincing, which is what really works for me. But with all that said, last question before we get into it. Random Peep says, which of the Witcher 3 DLCs did you like more? To be honest, I don't know if it's just because I just spent like 25 hours playing through Hearts of Stone twice, or if it's just in general, but I honestly think Hearts of Stone is probably the better DLC, and that's probably because I'm more of a narrative-based guy. I like the story that Hearts of Stone tries to tell. The way I describe it in the video is just that Hearts of Stone is a narrative expansion, and Blood and Wine, it tries to be a sort of gameplay expansion where it changes some stuff. It gives you a location. It builds up on oils and all of that stuff that a lot of people overlooked. There are things like, what is it, rune words or rune worlds or whatever it is in Hearts of Stone that are added, but they really, I don't think I'm even going to mention them in the video because when I looked online, the percentage of players that actually play with those is so abysmally small, nobody really bothered with them. So I would prefer Hearts of Stone probably. But and then really the last one, because I think this is relevant. Adam Miros says, small side question, have you played The Witcher 1? I do have The Witcher 1 here. Hold on, let me see. We'll do it live. There we go. Yes, I do have the original Witcher Enhanced Edition. I got this for like $10, I think at Target or somewhere. For all the complaining that I do about The Witcher 3's controls, this is way worse. It's so bad. They even admit it. CD Projekt Red says, like, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just a bunch of people who loved video games and wanted to create one. And each time we've done it, we've iterated and improved on it, and we're trying our best. But the first game was not very good, especially in terms of actual like game mechanics and stuff. It's not great. It's interesting. It's got some interesting plot points and stuff, but it certainly evolved. But with that said, I do want to talk about this. This is something that people on the Discord, I asked for suggestions for video topics. If you're not a member of the Discord, one of my mods who's in the chat can provide a link to that if you're interested. Just let them know. But with that said, somebody suggested that we talk about this, and I thought that it would be an interesting discussion because I actually did do a critique. If you want to look back and see it, I did a written out critique. It was very professional. I actually wrote a full script, and I did that for Mass Effect Andromeda, and I had some choice words to say about it. I don't think it's a very good game. I just don't. And I don't think that that's a controversial thing to say. Now, this report came out. This is off of PC Gamer. To give them due credit, by Andy Chalk. They said most of Mass Effect Andromeda was developed in just 18 months. And that's according to a report that actually analyzes the inner workings of the studio. Now, I can switch to something a little more interesting, visually interesting. Hopefully I don't get flagged for this. But yeah, so there's a lot of things that happened throughout this game's development. A lot of things that happened. And for the most part, they tried to push this engine called the Frostbite engine, and this was the primary issue. And the way that they describe it, as we see right here, quote, "The commitment to the Frostbite engine was a major problem, as one developer compared it to an F1 race car that goes like hell on the track and is virtually useless everywhere else. The Edmonton and Montreal studios clashed." Those were the two main studios who were working on Andromeda, leading to numerous departures, including that of director Casey Hudson, who had a tremendous impact on the direction of the game. That was the game director, and he left, or they left. I can't remember if it's a man or a woman, but they left in, I think, late 2014. They just walked away from the project because it was too insane, which is not good. Like, can you imagine if Todd Howard walked away from Skyrim in 2009? It would collapse, probably. Say what you will about him. I even have a joke in my coming video about him, which I think you guys will like. But it's having a game director, having just one throughout the entire development of a game is incredibly important because it's about consistency of vision. If you try to swap out like the author of a book halfway through, even if they both know all of the ins and outs of that game's or that novel's universe, you're still going to run into issues because they have different visions to where it should go. And that's the same thing with game development. And sure enough, they had issues because everything clashed and the game director got pushed out or just got fed up and left. So they go on to say tools were lacking and inconsistent, and a plan to rely on procedural planet generation to create a galaxy filled with hundreds of worlds, quote, "No Man's Sky with BioWare graphics and story," end quote, is how one developer described it. Didn't work out, but remained the go-to idea until the end of 2015. So essentially what this turned into, their goal was to have, as it describes here, a procedurally generated universe that was going to be massive. And it was going to be like No Man's Sky, but with all of Mass Effect's RPG elements, the story, and the graphics. Then that sounds great, to be fair. That sounds wonderful. The problem was Frostbite as an engine looks really good in very constricted moments, but once you broaden it and try to challenge it with these big elements, it's not built for it. For instance, the Red engine that CD Projekt Red uses for the Witcher games, and they used an updated version of it for The Witcher 3, that engine was built from scratch for the game that would eventually become The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Every element of it was built in with another element in mind. And each of these engines is built like a giant clock, where you have this gear that's maybe the dialogue system, then you have this gear that's the graphic system, then you have this gear that is the particle animation system, then you have this gear that is for this system. And it all just interlinks and gets crazy. And if it's not done very, very carefully, it can break. And apparently that's what happened. A lot of the systems, as they describe here, a lot of the tools were broken and weren't even working in early 2016, meaning that the dialogue system, for instance, wasn't fully working. It was still broken in early 2016 with the game set to release a year later. And that's a very bad thing. Like, you don't want that to happen, because once you have an engine, the idea is that you have your engine that you're working on during basically pre-planning and pre-production, and that you only do that, like you only move away from that once you are ready to go into full-fledged development. So how this would work for, for instance, a Skyrim, let's just go with that. After the Fallout 3 released in 2008, they spent that time when the rest of like the modelers and the animators and those guys, while they were working on DLC stuff for Fallout 3, or maybe Fallout 3, because I don't think they had much DLC. But if you look at a game like that, just think of the team, those animators, those modelers, those guys, they go off and they start working on the DLC, while the code team, the actual programmers, they go off and try to improve the engine and build it up. Because if you try to build up animations, or if you model stuff in the old engine, a lot of the time that won't transfer into the new updated engine, so it's just a waste of time to do. Just period. There's no reason to do it, and there's nothing really for animators to do when the engine is still being built, so you do DLC. It's another reason why DLC exists, because it gives them something to do where they aren't just sitting around and you don't have to go and hire a bunch of freelance people, which is really, it makes sense. It's interesting, and I think it's a reasonable thing to assume, because that's the constant issue. If you're updating an engine, your animators and all those guys aren't going to have anything to do. So it makes sense to have something they can do that will make at least a little money with the tools that work with a game that's already out and released. Now, the thing is that once that ends, once those programmers decide that the new engine is where it needs to be and it can perform well, it's got the tools we wanted, it's got the dialogue system, it's got great particle effects, it can also generate worlds just like that, it can cast rainbows in the sky behind you, it's wonderful, dynamic weather, all of that. Then they say, okay, we're leaving pre-production, we're going into full production. You shut down that team that is developing new features for the engine, because the engine should be running and going and turning over just fine. You end that, and then you start working on the actual development of the game. And those coders go into coding other systems or polishing or fixing bugs here and there. The problem with Mass Effect Andromeda is that basically the game never got out. The engine never got out of that pre-planning phase. It was always there. There was never a moment when all of the systems were at least working and they could just start developing the game. They were rushed out, which was their main issue. So the next quote is, quote, one developer interviewed for the report disputed that claim, or actually, I want to go up here. Click. Come on, there. Almost every developer who spoke to Kotaku said that most of Mass Effect Andromeda was developed in the final year and a half of its cycle between 2015 and its eventual release in March of 2017. Quote, it really wasn't until Mac Walters came on board, and that was very much a reaction to the state of the critical path. He was really brought on board to give it direction and get it into shape, one said. Before that, it was quite rudderless. And this is, again, a lack of management. You bring big suits in, like really intelligent, smart businessmen that can put a date and they can market it and they can get it in the hands of consumers, but they don't know anything about the game development. You need one person who everybody can be united underneath, looking to for direction. That's why Bethesda can work so well, because Todd Howard has directed basically every single game they've released in the last 15 years. And so everyone, from the time you get hired at that company to the time you leave that company, you know this is the boss, his vision is where it goes. Now, you can disagree with his vision, and I personally do for most of their games, but I can still appreciate that he is the single leader that they can look to and say, this is the guy that is in charge of us, and we're following his vision for the game. Mass Effect Andromeda never had that. They never had an actual vision until Mac Walters came on board. But by then, he had a year and a half to make something happen, and that's just a little too late to do anything massive. And like, for instance, quote, we'll put something together and it's been bug tested and signed off on and approved, one developer said. We'd say, okay, we can now move on from that to the next thing. And while our backs are turned, what we just put together falls apart. And that's just, again, it goes back to the issue of the engine, which came back to haunt them time and time again. Frostbite is a really good engine for certain types of games. For first-person shooters, apparently it works wonderfully and it's great. But for games that are open world, that are RPG and have a lot of simulations like this, it is not what you want. And they learned that lesson the hard way, unfortunately. So it's a sad story for Mass Effect Andromeda, but there's not much you can do. They screwed up. They thought they could do something they couldn't, and that's what you get. Now, with that said, I want to look at something. I covered this game a while back, and nobody was really talking about it when I decided to make a video on it. And I was a little baffled as to why, because it seemed like a really interesting game, a really interesting concept, and it's from a developer that has put out some good stuff. This is not paid promotion, I swear. I just like cherry Pepsi. And I don't have coffee today. What the hell is wrong with me? The world is ending. I don't have coffee. But with that said, this game was really interesting to me, and I'm sure you've seen the new trailer for it. And we're going to watch it together, and I'm going to offer some of my thoughts. This is Vampyr.
18.
Focus Home Interactive. Don't nod. Blood and candles. My typical afternoon. I'll adjust the volume. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this game was something that a lot of people were estimating was going to be a little rubbish. Because they saw the initial video, that if you've seen my video on it, you'll know what it looked like. Lip syncing was horrible. The fighting mechanics didn't look good at all. It was in this weird place where it couldn't make up its mind as to what it wanted to be. So, for instance, this is the same game that is being developed by Don't Nod. Don't Nod made Life is Strange, and Life is Strange had a very unique art style to it, where they didn't have any sort of attempt at realism. It was very, very kind of hand-drawn, and that was the goal, to make it look like that. And so they could get away with some of the lacking impressiveness in terms of graphic fidelity, for instance, just by saying, well, it's the style. Like, the reason the anti-aliasing can suck is because it's the style, and we wanted it to be jaggy, which has always been the excuse by a lot of these studios. Now, how hot is that? That's pretty hot. Old man sucking on her neck. But with that said, people were worried that this was going to be in like a halfway between, where it's going to be stylized so it wouldn't look good, but it would also look like it was trying to be realistic and really pretty. And so it wouldn't be able to make up its mind and would just look bad. And it's very possible that it will. This is in-engine footage. This is not in-game footage, at least as far as we know. But with that being said, it looks pretty good. At least the models do. The textures are not in this art style that looks like a cartoon. And so at least they've taken that into consideration. Now, the issue is that the big problem most people had with it was the combat and the lip syncing. And we have no instances of at least showing that to where we could judge it being improved or not improved. Now, the idea behind this game is that it's supposed to be sort of a role-playing vampire game. This is like one big LSD trip, I swear. and I'm not sure what the story of this trailer is. It's a little muffled. It's like, look what we can do. We had 3 years to make this trailer. Look at it. But it's supposed to be that you're basically a vampire during the Spanish flu epidemic, and you can go, and depending on what you do, you can suck out the life of some people. There we go. Of some people based on what their life is like, what they've done in the past, and that will have an impact on the overall world, just like you could make all of these branching decisions in Life is Strange, which was a really cool element, but they claim that they've gone above and beyond, and that they're going to have multiple different endings based on your decisions, and they'll have a lot of smaller little branching things as a result. Not in the Todd Howard Fallout 3 will have 200 different endings, which, yes, he said Fallout 3 would have 200 endings, which boggles the mind. It just had one really bad one. But with that said, like, it's apparently going to be interesting, and they're going to try to do something unique. It could either be a cringe fest, or it could be really interesting and could be a surprise hit. So we'll just have to see. But I thought I would show it to you because it seems like an intriguing idea nonetheless, and I thought I would bring it up. A little more Pepsi all night long. A little more Pepsi. I really like how engaged the audience is right now. Everyone in the chat, you're wonderful. You're wonderful. Somebody on the Discord said, I think the Lukey Poo, bowel movement is one of the best communities out there. Everyone gets along. Everyone talks with each other. We had one guy that was in the chat or in the lobby of the Discord server a couple weeks ago, and he was feeling really down and out, a little depressed, and like in any other Discord server, my guess is, at least from the ones I've seen, they'd like crack some jokes or just ignore him or whatever. But no, like people in the Lukey Poo Discord server, everyone got around, cheered him up, talked to him, shared some videos, and shared their gameplay with him, and then invited him to play with them on one of their servers. Like, it was just so much fun, and it was so great, and I love to see that. You guys are wonderful. You guys are wonderful. I just want to say that. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, well, actually, I should probably pull this up before I do, just because. Oh, I see why. I had it F11'd, so I couldn't actually see what I was trying to do. I was trying to pull up my bookmarks bar, and it wasn't coming up. If you haven't followed me on Twitter yet, I highly recommend that you do, because I post a lot of stuff there. But I do want... Where did I put it? Where did I put it? Where do I put it? Yes, right here. So, whoops. F11 again. Share that screen. So I did put this out, and I said I will not be covering the coming leaks of Cyberpunk 2077. The materials were stolen, and I can't reward that. Now, at first, people were a little dumbfounded by my willingness to not cover something, because it would help my channel to cover a leak of a game that I've been covering for a while, and from my favorite developer of video games, period. Like, it would help me. I would like to cover it, but I've chosen not to. And the reason is because of this. So this is coming off of PC Invasion, but they posted this to their Twitter initially. And basically what it reads off is that CD Projekt Red was hacked, or had something happen where materials and early design documents for Cyberpunk 2077 were stolen, and then they were held for ransom. So whoever this was that stole these materials, whatever they are, their early design documents, they took them, and then they said that CD Projekt Red needed to pay them a certain amount of money, or otherwise they would release them to the public, I guess. So what they said is, dear gamers, and again, this was on their Twitter feed. Dear gamers, an unidentified individual or individuals have just informed us that they are in possession of a few internal files belonging to CD Projekt Red. Among them are documents connected to the early designs for the upcoming game Cyberpunk 2077. A demand for ransom has been made, saying that we should or saying that should we not comply, the files will be released to the general public. We will not be giving in to the demands of the individual or individuals that have contacted us, which might eventually lead to the files being published online. The appropriate legal authorities have been informed about the situation. The documents are old and largely unrepresentative of the current vision for the game. Still, if you're looking forward to playing Cyberpunk 2077, it would be best for you to avoid any information not coming directly from CD Projekt Red. When the time is right, you will hear about Cyberpunk 2077 from us, officially. Sincerely, CD Projekt Red team. So, like, what does this mean in general? Well, obviously they were hacked. I don't think I need to explain that again. But they were held for ransom, and they were threatened with the leak if they didn't pay them. They're not going to negotiate with these people, and so something will be leaked. But the thing that turned out and was significant to me was that they felt it necessary to clarify that the documents are old and largely unrepresentative of the current vision for the game, which is a little bit of a weird thing. Like, I would imagine that early design concept stuff would be things like drawings of the city, concept art, things like that, or maybe a description of a gameplay mechanic, or maybe a character design or something. Maybe they have a script. Maybe they have a big script from a plot twist in the game or something like that. But it's weird. It's weird that they felt the need to say that the documents were unrepresentative. Now, it's also possible that the documents they're trying to basically say this, they didn't even get anything good. So there's no reason for you to reward these people by reading their stuff, because it doesn't even reflect what the game is going to be like. So don't bother. Either way, it's split. It's something that I don't want to support, and I don't think anybody should. So I am not going to be covering this game. I hope that other sources refuse to. I hope that GameSpot, IGN, whoever these people try to take it to, I hope that they just, say, nope, you stole them. We're not touching this. My guess is that they would do that, and that they'll be forced to upload them to 4chan or something. But it is a little disappointing to hear that happened. It's really sad, but it brings back to mind something I think that's important to at least discuss. A lot of people, they forget that these leaks, probably 90% of the time, they are stolen materials. They are a disgruntled employee wanted to get back at being fired, so he took some of the designs that he was working on and described it and put it out there. It's and even if it's not that, even if it's somebody who just wanted to share his passion for the thing that he was working on for 3 years with the internet community a little early, even then, it's not his stuff. It belongs to the company. It belongs to the owners of the IP, which ultimately is not that individual, that leaker. So they are still stolen materials. And we have this weird sort of tolerance for it because it's about stuff that we enjoy. But we also have to remember that ultimately these are just, they're stolen. It's bad to support it ultimately. One of the reasons I'm trying to move away from like the reporting on spoilers and on leaks and on that type of thing, just because I don't want to encourage that by creating this world where everything is getting leaked and everything is being changed and spat out because somebody got angry at somebody else. And I just don't want that to happen. So that's kind of my thought on it. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Yeah, Deathstroke says they did a good job in shutting those criminals up. They apparently did. Everyone has responded really well to this decision by CD Projekt Red, and I'm really glad to hear that people are okay with this. And I haven't seen or heard of any leaks coming out, so maybe they were bluffing the entire time. My guess is they wouldn't even bother putting this out unless they had reason to believe they actually did have access to some of these materials. Like, for instance, the thieves could say, yeah, so we have these documents that are from your blah, blah, blah folder on this blah, blah, blah server that had the passcode of blah, blah, blah. If you don't want us to put it out there, then you should give us money. then I would take it seriously. If I were them, I don't think I would do this unless I was certain that they actually had some interesting material on it. Boss Sturwold says, Lukapu, are you going to talk about the Battlefront 2 beta reveal? Yeah, they're going to be playing it at the E3. Whoops, I hit a button. They're going to be playing that at the E3 event, I do believe tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow morning. And it's whatever they call it, EA Play or something like that at E3. And they're going to be playing a particular mission of Battlefront 2. They're also going to be playing some other EA games. And it'll be interesting to see what it's like. I mean, we know for the most part what we're getting in terms of multiplayer. It's just going to be more of the same, but hopefully more of it. And like, I don't expect anything revolutionary in terms of the new Battlefront in terms of gameplay mechanics. What I am excited about is the single player campaign and the narrative side of it, to have that. And so hopefully they can demonstrate that will be good, give us a little more context to that. But in terms of like the actual, like big group sessions that they have, like last year they had Snoop Dogg and they had Terry, what's his name, Terry something. They had a bunch of celebrities, Zac Efron. They had them there and they were playing Battlefield 1. And like Snoop Dogg got 0 kills, like 30 deaths. It was really funny. He was horrible at it. And he was just smoking pot in there and he's high off his ass. And he sucked at the games, but it was funny. I hope that they don't try to do that. Like, we're gamers. I don't care if Snoop Dogg is playing the game. If it's a good game, I'll want to buy it anyways. I get that they're famous or whatever, and maybe that's why they bring them in so that they can appeal to a broader market. Or maybe Snoop was honestly just like, hey, I want to come to this. I like video games, even though I suck at them. Can I get a free ticket and play there? And then they just film him because he's famous. That's probably more like what it is. But still, they made a big deal. Terry Crews. Yes, thank you, Terry Crews. Still, it kind of bugged me, kind of irked me. I don't care what they think of the game. Clearly, Snoop Dogg is not going to, I don't think he's a good critic of anything at all. Maybe pot, maybe different types of pot, but in terms of most things, I don't think you should go to Snoop Dogg for advice, or Snoop Lion, or Snoop Doggy Dog. It changes depending on the day. My goodness. Roger Flugel says, I don't know why EA keeps focusing on sports games at E3. That is also a very good point. It doesn't make any sense. They spend so much time going over the next Madden game, going over FIFA. They go over all these sports games that most, like, people that consider themselves gamers don't care that much about. And I know I'll probably get like flack for that because somebody will be like, hey, I'm a gamer and I like those games. And that's fair. I like playing Madden in a group setting at a party or something. But most gamers that are like more mainstream or more dedicated, that buy a gaming PC, or it's much more of a dedicated hobby, I would say, they don't tend to get super excited over the next Madden because it's a yearly iteration type thing. So much so that people tend to just tune it out. You don't even really think about the release of the next Madden game. But football fans do, and like college bros do. And I know because I know a lot of college bros. But for most gamers, it's not really an interesting topic. It's kind of a footnote. It's like, oh yeah, I guess there's a new Madden now. What's the difference? It's the same thing. They just change around the buttons sometimes and maybe make it look a little better, but rarely not. Those games really don't look very good for being a sports game in 2017. It's, to me, a little bit ridiculous, but they still focus on them so much at E3, where everyone who is watching are dedicated gamers. Like, so much so that if they're living in Europe, they're staying up to like midnight to try and see the newest sneak peek of The Last of Us Part 2. And that's a hardcore gamer. But I don't think that your football and Madden fans are watching E3. Now, I'm sure they have some statistic or some demographic numbers that shows that they do. I just can't imagine that it's an actual thing. But I guess it is, because it costs some money to do those presentations. I mean, I don't think they're wasting their time. I don't think they would do that willingly, but maybe they do. Maybe they just hate themselves. Maybe they're like Manichaeans and they're just self-flagellating. But those games sell very, very well. Very well. Like Madden is always yearly a really high seller because all those football fans, they just go and they buy the newest one to get the new roster or whatever. And same with FIFA. FIFA is like a silent behemoth that nobody really is aware of, but it sells millions upon millions upon millions of copies every year with the newest iteration. And so I guess that's why. But I still would argue that I don't think you need to show it off at E3 to get that sales numbers. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. 101 Mythbusters is asking, what are my video plans for E3? That is a very good question. So E3 is, I'm actually going to pull this up. Let me pull up my mighty schedule. La, 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 la. There we go. So this is the EA press conference times for 2017. This gives you the time zone that it's in. So if you need to see where you are, you can kind of check that. And then it will describe, based on that time zone, if you go left to right, and follow that row, then you can match it up with the column to see what the time is, which is pretty cool. And then the colors tell you the days, so you can match it up and meet it like that. So based on this, I live in Colorado, so Denver is actually my time zone. So EA's press conference is tomorrow, Saturday, June 10th at 1 p.m. I can do that. It's EA. So again, I don't think it would probably be worth covering it live because, again, they're going to spend probably 45 minutes going over sports stuff that my audience is not really interested in. I'm not really interested in. And they'll probably unveil like a new trailer for Battlefront and explain that a little more, which I could probably do more justice after that ends with a dedicated live stream, kind of like a Talk Gaming mini, almost like that. Maybe we'll do like a bite-sized Talk Gaming, figure out a name for that. If you have any good ideas for a nickname for a mini Talk Gaming, Chat Gaming, maybe, I don't know, let me know. But with that said, I think I'll probably do that live stream after that. So probably around the time that this stream started today, we'll do it tomorrow, discussing EA. Now, Microsoft goes Sunday. They actually go Sunday. I think Nintendo also has something tomorrow, I think. Let me check my schedule. Nintendo is not doing a dedicated E3 presser like a lot of... No, it's on Sunday, it looks like. They're not doing a dedicated E3 presser. They're doing a Nintendo Direct. I just hope they don't just talk about Splatoon. Like, come on. Don't just talk about Splatoon. Go and talk about Super Mario Odyssey. Talk about, you better be bringing Smash Bros to the Switch. Like, come on. How is it not on the Switch already? They better be working on that and they better announce it. I want to see stuff about the Zelda DLC. I want to see Dark Souls 3 announced for the Switch. I want to see stuff like that. No more stupid ports of games that are 3 years old. I love my Switch. It's doing pretty well. I've actually had a couple issues with it recently. A couple issues with it. Like this morning I woke up and I was walking out the door and I looked over and the screen was on even though it was in the dock. And I was like, that's weird. It's supposed to be asleep, but okay. So I pull it out and it's hot. Like it feels like I've been playing Zelda docked for like 2 hours. It's hot. It's hot. And it's just set on the screen like the system had to shut down because of an error. Oh, okay. It said press the power button to shut it off. So, okay. Powered off. It was fine. So I left it on the desk, didn't plug it back in, and it went about my way. There's been other problems with the dock. I think I might have a crappy dock that potentially could fry my Switch, so I should probably contact them about it. But that's been worrying me. I've been having some issues with the dock. Everything else is fine. Everything else has worked fine, but the dock has irked me a little bit. But with that said, the next day, Sunday, is Microsoft and Bethesda Game Studios. So this is a little fugazi. Like Bethesda's column starts there, but maybe it loops back there. Is that what they're saying? No, because I don't know how to read this. Anyway, this is, oh, I see. Because this is looping. No, I don't see. Okay, never mind. Anyway, but so for me at least, it's going to be 3 p.m. for Microsoft on Sunday, and then 10 p.m. on for me, which seems really late, which is weird that they're starting that late. But they're doing that. That one would probably make more sense to actually live stream because they'll have more interesting games that are more up my audience's alley and up my alley, hopefully. And Microsoft, they better have something. They better. I mean, yeah, they just better have something. So tomorrow, about this time currently, but on Sunday, so 2 days from now, not tomorrow, but about this time on Sunday, we'll probably live stream Microsoft's event. I'll watch it with you guys. We can all be chatting together, and we'll be doing that. I feel bad. I know somebody in New York who has a YouTube channel, and for him, that is at midnight, and he doesn't do live streams for this type of thing, and so he is going to be a little screwed. He's going to have to stay up all night trying to get videos out on Bethesda. I don't care that much. But Lanky Doza says, yo, at Lukapoo, I got a name idea or nickname idea for the short talk gaming thing. Small talk gaming. Like small talk gaming. Actually, that is pretty good. I do like that. Good thinking. I like that a lot. Small talk gaming. Yeah, it's just like the mini bite-sized versions where it's not the dedicated podcast, but it's also like its own thing. And yeah, no, I like that a lot. So Bethesda is on Sunday as well, but really late. We'll probably live stream that one, and we'll probably live stream Microsoft, and I'll take a break in between. Probably go and see the girlfriend because I got to pay my due. PC gaming show. This is just something that, like, it could be hit, could be miss. Probably a miss. It tends to be one of those. So that will happen. Then Ubisoft. Now, this is the big one. This is the big mama. The big mama jamba that a lot of people are waiting for, including myself, especially because I have so many people on here that like Assassin's Creed, and that's when they're going to be announcing that. So that's at 2 p.m., the same time that this episode started today. But on Monday, we're going to be live streaming that. And then also Sony has their presser 7 p.m. that night. Also, we're going to live stream that. And then the next day, we have Nintendo, which is at 10 a.m. my time. I normally work in the mornings till about 1 p.m. So that probably I'm not going to live stream just because I think it'll probably be a miss. I think it's mostly going to be all sorts of stuff. Plus, my guess is that they would copyright strike me for having their own audio in the background. So it would just be a bit of a waste. So I wouldn't expect anything awesome there. I've just been burnt out. Like, it's one of those things. Nintendo, it's like, I want to give you my money, but you make it so hard sometimes. I just want you to have my money. I want these games. Put it out there. I don't give a crap about this, like, backwards compatible console. And I get that a lot of people like that. But they want, like, the original Zelda, scroller style or whatever that is. But, like, the original NES versions of these games. And I'm like, am I the only one that doesn't really care for that? Or I would much prefer to have an actual newer game instead of just putting something out that was released 20, 30 years ago. Like, come on, give me something good, put some effort into it. But they tend to do the bare minimum. Or maybe it's, like I always say, maybe it's a cultural thing that I just don't get. I don't know. But whatever it is, it baffles me. Yes. So Max Prod, to recap, I'll be live streaming Microsoft, Bethesda, Ubisoft. We're going to skip PC gaming because I'm not even really sure what that is, but Ubisoft we're going to do, and Sony we're going to do. So bing, 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 bing. These four. We're going to be live streaming those. And, so yeah, get some popcorn. It's going to be a blast. Hopefully we have some awesome stuff, and we will have a new long form critique to also have out there. And I don't know, it's taken so much time to get that one made. I'm honestly going to need like, maybe I'll switch it up. Some people were asking for a critique of Syndicate, which I think could be cool. But like, again, do I want to go back to Assassin's Creed? I don't know. I'm sure after these press conferences, I'll have a good idea as to what I do. If the new Assassin's Creed looks awesome, I'll probably do Syndicate and then analyze what hopefully they fixed, things like that. But yeah, let me know what you would like to see. The next, like, what would you like to see the next critique or analysis be? If you're watching this recorded later, then you can leave those comments down below too. I'll be reading those as well. But yeah, we're gonna do that. So let's see. Deathstroke 5700 says, will you be streaming on YouTube or on Twitch? That's a good question. Now, I've been debating this a fair bit, and I can actually switch back to this while we're doing this. I've been debating this a fair bit as to where I want to go, and my conclusion was it is easier to stream on YouTube for me because that's where my audience is. My subscribers get a notification thing that pops up on their cell phones or wherever they are if I go live, which is great. So I tend to get a larger audience when I do it on YouTube. The problem is that it tends to cloud up my channel and my uploads with videos that most people aren't going to care about after they've gone live. And I don't want that to happen. So what I've decided is that gameplay sessions are going to be on Twitch, where we actually play games. So if I'm critiquing, Syndicate, for instance, or Resident Evil 7, I will play it on there while I'm playing it. We can share in the experience together and go like that. And it's a great time. But my live streams where it's something that I would like people to be able to watch back afterwards, I'll do on YouTube. So these, I think we'll be doing these live streams here on YouTube. That way that they're automatically recorded, and right after they're done, they're uploaded. So if you're at work or if you're in a different time zone and you're asleep while they're doing this press conference, because like the Bethesda one, for even Americans, like that's way late. And so it makes sense to live stream that and have it automatically recorded and set so that the next morning you can check the channel and you can see it live with us because it was recorded live and you don't have to go and read some article on it. So that's the plan. Yeah, a couple days ago, I think on Tuesday, we did a live stream of The Witcher 3 on Twitch, which was great. It was awesome. We had a great time. We did a lot of side quests, and I'm somebody that tends to struggle with side quests. I get distracted easily, and I tend to just go with the main quest above and beyond anything else, and it's a real bummer when that happens. But yeah, no, I really made a concerted, I think, I don't know, whatever it is, effort to focus on the side quests for that stream, and we made a lot of progress, and it was super fun. I had a great time. It was a great time. Yes, people asking for the username on Twitch. It's LukeyPoo TV. That's the channel, LukeyPoo TV. We haven't streamed on there a lot, but we're going to start streaming on there a lot more moving forward, especially as we try out a lot of this a lot of these critique style things. And as always, like, we just have a good time. I'll try to tweet it out. If you're not following me on Twitter, do that. Twitter is one of those weird things. It's incredibly important nowadays. It's weird because if you're trying to set up like for instance, a collaboration with another YouTuber. So say I wanted to get Mr. Matty Plays on the podcast to debate which game is better, Fallout 3 or New Vegas, which is something I've wanted to do for a while. But if I wanted to get him on there, normally I would have to just try to contact him by tweeting at him or DMing him, depending on his settings, usually tweeting directly at him. Now, if you have a lot of followers, you aren't going to get that notification at all because it's just flooded out with the rest of them, unless you are what they deem an important person and you happen to get a lot of followers that are also on your account, so it deems you important, and then will push your message and your tweet to the top of his feed so that he can see it and respond. It's like a currency. It's like subscribers on YouTube. People don't take you seriously as a YouTuber unless you have a lot of subs, and they don't take you seriously on Twitter as a creator or as a personality unless you have a lot of followers. So we got to work on that. I got to figure out how I push that. Probably a lot of giveaways. We'll start doing some of those. 101 Mythbusters says, Lukey Poo, could you make a critique on the BioShock games? Maybe talk about the themes and characters. That could be really cool. I do like the BioShock games. There's so much to talk about there. So much. Like, holy crap. Apparently, a lot of people are thinking that there will be a new BioShock announced at E3 this year. 2K, I think it is 2K games. What are their two big franchises? It's BioShock, and they have another like first-person shooter that they push. What is that one called? I can't remember. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. You guys know everything. I don't. Liam Shaw is sorry. He says he was asleep. And he missed a lot of the stream. It's okay, buddy. It's okay. There will be plenty more, especially if you're following on Twitch. You can get an app. This is what I do. I love watching Boogie, Boogie2988 on Twitch. He's hilarious. It's great. And I was always bummed out because I was missing his streams all the time. So what I did is I got the Twitch app, followed him, and then change my notifications to get a pop-up, a push notification every time he went live. So now I never miss a stream. It's wonderful. And that's always a safe way to do it. Borderlands. Is that what it is? Borderlands. I think that's what it is. Borderlands. But yeah, they also own Rockstar. Something like that. Yeah, Borderlands. People are saying Borderlands. That sounds right. So we'll either get Borderlands 3 or we're going to get a new BioShock, which either which way, a lot of people are going to be happy. And so we'll just have to see. We'll have to see. Which would you guys prefer? I don't know. But apparently, BioShock Infinite lost a lot of faith after BioShock Infinite lost a bunch of money. We've talked about this on the channel before, but it was mainly just because they tried to do something very ambitious, but the game director basically rebooted development 3 times. So they made the game, it was in an alpha state, and then he was just like, no, this isn't working. It doesn't fit my vision. Start over. And they did that twice more. And so while the game was really successful and was one of the most popular games of that year, won multiple YouTubers Game of the Year awards and all of that, it was so expensive to make because they basically made 3 games, 3 AAA first-person shooters, and the game director just kept throwing it out. So we'll see. We'll see what it is. But either way, I honestly think this E3 is going to be very impressive. And what I talked about this, and I'll probably close with this and clarify, and then I'll take a couple final questions. So if you have final questions, let me know in the comments. Somebody on Twitter sent me it was, they kind of tweeted at me and said, hey, can we DM or something? Okay, like, sure. And so he sent me something, and he said, basically he had access to the Sony presentation schedule for their lineup, their game lineup for all of the trailers that apparently he's doing tech or something at the E3 conference. So he got this like scheduled packet that had all of the games outlined so that he in the booth could know which things to queue up, which videos to queue up and all of that. And I can't talk about it too much. He begged me not to discuss it in detail just because he might even be in the chat right now. I'm not sure. But he begged me to not go into too much detail with it. But what I can say is that if that whole schedule and lineup of games was correct, I think that there's going to be something like Microsoft better have something great planned. Like they better have something great. It's just they can't get by just putting out the Scorpio saying it's really powerful. You can have the best gaming PC in the world, but if you don't have any games to play on it, what's the use? Like you can have the greatest gaming PC in the world, but if I say you can't download Steam or Origin, you only get Uplay. It's going to be severely limited, and it's not going to be as wonderful. You'll have some games, but it's not going to be that great, even though it's super powerful. And I think that's what they're missing. And hopefully they come out, Microsoft says, listen, we have a new Fable, and it's everything that we promised you in years past. That's what it is now. It's wonderful. It's great. Enjoy. New Fable. And then we also have friggin' Crackdown 3 working. It works on Xbox One S and on Scorpio. It looks great on Scorpio, and the city is completely destructible. It's wonderful. It just makes sense that that's what a reasonable company would do, and they better have that in the works. I mean, if you're talking about Scorpio, which we probably started hearing about 2 years ago, then my guess is they probably at that point realized that they needed exclusives, because that was 2015. That was the year of Bloodborne, for instance. So they realized they needed exclusives, starting developing those and funding those. Right around now, we should be seeing the benefits of that. But if they don't have a few jaw-dropping exclusives for Scorpio at launch, it's going to have a hard time. It's going to have a real tough time. And Microsoft has put all their eggs in this basket. They better have something great. So yeah. Max Prod says, oh, you have games? Well, we have the same console, but different. Same, but different. That's Microsoft. Yeah, no, it's, yeah. And then Roger says, imagine Microsoft talks about Netflix at 4K the entire show. The sad thing is I could see them doing that, because they just don't understand. If they don't have exclusives, I think it demonstrates that they just simply don't understand their audience and what gamers actually want. And I get it. Exclusives are terrible and exclusives are bad, and nobody likes exclusives because it makes it so a whole demographic and customer base can't play certain games. I get that. As a consumer, pro-consumer guy, I sympathize with that. But in terms of business, simply business, if you don't give people, if you release a new console and the only things you have on it, the only games you have on it are the same ones that you can get on the PC or on the PS4 or on whatever, or on your normal Xbox, you give them no reason to do it. It's why the PS4 Pro kind of struggled out of the gate, because there was no, other than it just being more powerful, there wasn't anything great for it. Now, what I know a lot of people did is they wanted to play like Bloodborne up-resed and at a stabler frame rate. And I can understand that. And I would certainly like to do that. That game running in 60 FPS at like 4K, can you even imagine what that would be like? But that's because it's an exclusive. It's something they couldn't get anywhere else. And if Microsoft doesn't have that, they're in for some real trouble. Anyway, I just talked for like 5 minutes straight about something I can't remember. I hope honestly that settings and like graphics settings come to consoles. Neo had that, and it was really interesting. Tomb Raider also had that, where you could actually choose like a performance level. Neo, you could choose like a cinematic mode, which was a much less stable frame rate, but they gave you all the bells and whistles. Looked incredible, but it wasn't very smooth. You could choose action or performance, whatever they called it, mode, which was smooth, 60 FPS, but it didn't look super great. The lighting engine changed. Then they had a variable version, which was just a steaming pile of dumpster garbage. It was just stupid. That's what I would like to see. Like that's great, because then people can actually choose like, I prefer the higher frame rates, or I prefer the more cinematic look and with slower frame rates, but it looks better. That would be really great. That'd be really great. Yeah, Jordan says you need some coffee, brother. I agree. I need me some coffee. The girlfriend moved today, like just across the street, so it wasn't a big deal, but she moved, and it's Friday. It's Friday. That's what it is. It's Friday. And it's the Friday before E3. And I've been working on video, not even videos, one giant video all week. And The Witcher 3 critique, I worked on that for weeks on end, playing the game through and trying to take notes while I did it. But I got that out. I did a Unity critique, and then I did this critique, and or the Witcher critique. And then I was like, oh, wow, people are really liking this. Like tens of thousands of people are watching it and getting exposed to the channel for the first time. So I better pump out the Hearts of Stone DLC one. And so I plowed through it. But damn, it's a lot of work, and there's a lot to do. Hearts of Stone, or not Hearts of Stone, Blood and Wine, I'm going to probably put off for a couple or a few weeks, just because I'm like in a daze. I'm exhausted. Plus, it probably takes anywhere from 50 to 60, 70 hours of work to make one of these episodes happen. And maybe that seems low, or maybe that seems incredibly high. I don't know. But a lot of it is just that it's incredibly time consuming. You got to scrub through like tens of hours of footage to find the exact context. Then you have to also figure out what you're saying and what makes sense and form your arguments. Then you got to do this extra research stuff, like, reading biographies and footnotes and character descriptions and the journal entries for every different option in the game. So it's just and then you have to hope that once you record it, you don't mess something up or miss something in editing that screws it up, or that somebody misunderstands and doesn't get it and takes it out of context. It's just a big thing. Yeah, but we're gonna have some cool stuff coming up. We're gonna be live streaming through E3. It's gonna be great. Again, recap. I will be streaming Microsoft. We're gonna do Small Talk Gaming. Great idea. Again, who said that? I want to give them credit. Who said that? Small Talk Gaming. I lost it. It's way up at the top. Crap, there's a lot of comments. Wow, you guys are awesome. Holy crap. Wonderful. I actually legitimately can't find it. That's how awesome you guys are, that you talk that much. It's wonderful. Thank you. But yeah, we're going to be doing it. It's going to be great. We're going to have a great time. I'll probably, before Microsoft, as somebody just pointed out in the chat, Max Prod pointed out in the chat. Yes, Lanky Doza. Thank you, Lanky Doza, for that idea. It was great. That was a wonderful idea, so thank you. But Max Prod pointed this out and said that if before the Microsoft event, I can recap what happened at the E3 event, which makes sense. So maybe we'll start that like 15-20 minutes early, before 3 p.m. So at like 2:30 maybe we'll go for about 2:30. So 30 minutes after this started, about there. Yeah, Denver time. I think that'll work. We'll go through that. Again, follow me on Twitter or join the Discord. That's a great way to do it. And I have a specific channel that I will tag everyone in so that you get notifications and know exactly what's happening and when, reminders before we go live and all of that. But thank you guys. This has been a good episode. I enjoyed it. Kind of flew by, but time flies when you're having fun. As I say, I'm going to try to finish up this critique video and get it out to the patrons. And then it'll be up to the general public after that. So hopefully you guys like it. I really hope so. Then after I finish that, I'm going to take a nap because I'm awesome. But thank you for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.